Hey everybody, Will here from O'Reilly Auto Parts to show you how to change the front brake pads and rotors on a 2013 Toyota Tacoma. Procedures will be similar for most Tacoma models from 2005 to 2015, but be sure to know the specifics for your vehicle before getting started. Once you've got your supplies together, here's what you'll do. Park on a level surface. Use a breaker bar and a 19mm socket or lug wrench to loosen the lug nuts on your front wheels. Chock the rear wheels. Lift and support the front end of the truck. Remove the lug nuts and the front wheels. Turn the steering wheel away from the side you're working on for easier access to the caliper. Remove the spring clip from the inside of the slide pins. Use a punch and hammer to tap the slide pins toward the outside of the caliper. Remove the pins and the retainer clip. If needed, use a flathead screwdriver between the rotor and brake pads to compress the caliper pistons slightly. All you'll need is enough room to remove your old brake pads. Once you have enough space, remove the old brake pads from the caliper. Needle nose pliers can make this step a little easier. Use a ratchet and a 12mm socket to remove the brake line mounting bolt and bracket. Then a ratchet and 17mm socket to loosen the two caliper bolts. When you remove the second bolt, the caliper will be loose, so secure the caliper with your other hand. Suspend the caliper out of the way, making sure there's no pressure on the brake hose. Use a hammer if needed to knock the rotor loose, and remove it. Use brake cleaner and a shop towel or rag to wipe any oils from the friction surface of the new rotor. Anytime you use brake cleaner, remember that it will strip paint, so be very careful where you spray it. Clean any rust off the hub with a wire brush. Adding silicone brake grease to the hub before installing your new rotor will make it easier to remove it during your next brake service. Install your new rotor. And use one of the wheel lug nuts to hold it in place as you continue to work. Now, clean the exposed portion of your caliper pistons with brake cleaner on a towel or rag. If the rubber boot is cracked or if there's brake fluid leaking, the caliper needs to be replaced. Attach your bleeder tool and open the bleeder valve by turning it counterclockwise. Compress the brake caliper with a brake caliper compressor tool. Use an old brake pad to protect the pistons. When you're done, the pistons should be flush with the housing. Tighten the bleeder valve, being careful not to let any air into the line. Reinstall the caliper on the rotor and thread the two caliper bolts by hand. Use your 17mm socket and torque wrench to tighten the bolts to 91 foot-pounds. Lubricate the contact points on the new brake pads with 100% silicone grease and install your new brake pads in the caliper. Be sure not to get any grease on the friction side of the pads or the rotor. Clean the slide pin with brake cleaner. Then apply some fresh silicone grease. Reinstall the top slide pin and the retainer clip. Clean the slide pin with brake cleaner Then apply some fresh silicone grease. Hold the retainer clip in place as you install the bottom slide pin. Install the spring clip that holds the slide pins against the caliper and make sure it's secure. Reinstall the brake hose mounting bracket and bolt and tighten using a 12mm socket and ratchet. Remove the lug nut you used to keep the rotor in place and be sure you've removed your caliper hanger. Reinstall the wheel and tighten the lug nuts until the wheel is secure against the rotor. It's always a good idea to change brake pads and rotors in pairs, so repeat these steps on the other side. Lower the front end and remove the wheel chocks. Use your 19mm socket and torque wrench to tighten the nuts in a star pattern to 83 foot-pounds. Once the job is complete, before you drive anywhere, be sure to pump your brake pedal several times until you feel the pressure return. Some brake fluid was pushed out when you compressed your pistons, so check your master cylinder and add fluid as needed. If your brake pedal feels spongy, it's likely that you have air in one or both of your front brake lines. Here's a link to a video on how to bleed those lines to remove the air if needed. To help break in the new components, it's a good idea to test drive your vehicle, slowing it 30 times from 30 miles per hour with moderate brake pressure, allowing the brakes to cool for about 30 seconds in between each slowdown. Try to avoid aggressive stops during this break-in process. Your brakes will probably smell after you've done this, and that's okay. If the odor persists past 500 miles or so, or if you have excess dust on a wheel, you may have a stuck caliper. And that's it. You'll find everything you need for this and other jobs at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store or O'ReillyAuto.com. If you're not completely comfortable doing this yourself, we'd be happy to recommend a professional technician in your area. And be sure to subscribe so you'll see all our new video content. We'll see you again soon.